Hello and welcome to Platypus Scotsman. Hope you're not going stir crazy. But anyway, let's talk about making a container and let's jump right into it. I went ahead and cut some foam core with an X-Acto knife. This is 2.5 inches by 4. This is 1 3/4 by 4. And I'm just going to do a container. One of the things I do just to help support them, just so I don't have to hold them the entire time with my fingers, is just use stick pins, stab through. Now I'm just going to glue the inside with some hot glue. And this is just a frame to support the outside that I'm going to do, so I don't really care if it's 100% perfect. It's not that big of a deal to me. All right, this is sheet styrene, and I'm going to use that because I want to dent this up a little bit. I used paper when I made the shack, but I want to use styrene in this one. I want to make sure the corrugation goes this way. And so I'm going to use my trusty corrugator. All right, before I put it on, I want to put some dents in it. Actually, I want to put some claw marks in it too. Yeah, I think that's what I want to do. I think I want to go all the way through with this first. I think for what I'm doing, these tweezers work the best, or what I'm trying to do. So I'm just putting some dents in it with this side, just because it's a little bit, I don't know, seems like it works really well. And then also just kind of give it a different shape. Use the back side of that. Yeah, and then I'm going to scratch up the front. The X-Acto knife, just have more scratches on it. All right, just going to put some hot glue on this. Since this is plastic, I'm going to use some Weld-On now to weld these joints and make them a little bit better so I can trim them and sand them so the joints and everything that I put on later are better. Now Now it's all dry, I'm just going to trim the edges off, just get it flush. This is just an emery board, just sanding it down just to kind of make it a little bit more smooth. I've cut some strips of 0.04 inch styrene so I can border the edge of this. Nice thing about this is I can line it up, paint this on, and it glues, if I'm patient. There's a reason I'm using plastic on this, because there's a rust effect that I want to do later, and that's why I'm using plastic. It just works better with plastic. And plus I just want to show plastic this time, since I showed paper last time. When you use plastic, it tends to hold its form better. So when you dent it like this, it keeps that dent versus paper. Now, if you happen to do what I just did right here, and the glue gets on your finger, it's not that big of a deal. It's going to leave a fingerprint, but just kind of smear it a little bit, because then it'll look like rust later, or like it's been rusty. Actually, with this, since this is plastic, I can go a little bit longer on this, because then I can just glue it and file it down, and it'll make my edges better. Sorry, when I focus a little bit, I tend not to talk. And my friends can attest to that when I'm on paint nights. If I actually am in the painting mood, I don't say a whole lot of anything. Oh crap, see, right there. And I really want to make sure I hold this edge down right here, or they butt right here together really well, so it bonds really well, because then I can file it down later with an emery board. I mean, I guess if you didn't care about close-up scrutiny, you don't need to worry about that. But if you care about close-up scrutiny, then you're gonna want to make sure these joints right here are really well done, so you can file them. I'm not really worried about close-up scrutiny. I'm just anal. Now that everything's good and dry, I'm gonna cut these excess pieces off that I just went over the edges just a little bit on. I've already done one side on the door, and essentially what I did is I just cut out a sheet of styrene that fit within the door, like so, and just kind of guessed and determined they were about a ½ inch wide on each of them. Well, not wide, well, I guess wide. And then just cut them up. And snap them like so. And so I want them beveled on the sides, or not the sides, but the sides, I don't know, bottom and top. All right, and once all of them are done, and I'm just gonna kind of eyeball them to where I want them. That's what I did with the first ones. And once they're there, I don't care if they're exactly even apart. Once they're there, just kind of hold them down. Get my Weld-On and just apply it. And then once they're kind of set up, just going to go back over the whole thing. Just because it's a little bit thicker plastic, I just want to make sure the bonds are really good. So these are some half rounds, 1.5 millimeter half rounds, and I put 4 pieces on top and 4 pieces on the bottom. And just now I'm going to burn some sprues and stretch them out. Should wear a mask doing this. Whoops. That's going to screw that one up. Just going to eyeball it and get that in line between the 2 joints. Right there. Get my Weld-On. The door's all done. I just put some sheet styrene here and then a half rod here and cut out some sheet styrene, the thicker stuff, the 0.04, and put some 1/16 rods right here to cement hinges. And I might file these down a little bit just to round them off because I don't like how sharp they are. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create rust. So I'm just going to dip the end of this into here and then kind of dab it. I want it dipped a little bit more. And then what it does is it starts getting tacky and starts to stick to the other one and kind of creates a cool effect where you can use it for rust. And as it starts to stick or it starts to kind of adhere, you can kind of pull it away too to give it a little bit more depth. Essentially, you're just transferring plastic to your piece and also pulling it a little bit away. But the idea behind it is you're just trying to give it texture. At least that's what I'm trying to do, is just give it some texture to it and also deform it a little bit. And since this is the bottom, I want a little bit more down here where the water's going to settle and kind of give it a little bit more rust. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit it with some cinnamon. It's satin. I'm gonna let that dry, and then I'll hit it with another coat until we get a solid coat on it. This is a teal, a vintage teal, not just teal, but vintage teal. And I'm gonna spray it as on kind of like a 45. Just kind of mist it at first. I don't want to do a lot because I don't want it to run. And I'm willing to do more coats. All right, let's see what that looks like, and maybe that might be good enough. Now that it's all dry, I'm going to hit it with some Known oil just to dirty it up because I don't want this to be a pristine container. Plus, it sounds like a good excuse just to dirty it up, so it's not a pristine container. Plus, this Known oil will help dull it up anyway because this satin stuff is kind of a little bit shiny, and I don't want a shiny container. This is rust gray. And I'm just going to go through and dry brush, but the one thing I want to do with this is I want the paint to be on the side of my brush. I don't want to dry brush it like this. I want to dry brush it like this because of the ripples and everything inside on the container. I don't want to go in them, so I want to have my brush be as flat as possible. Especially when I do the sides like this. I want my brush to bounce along the ripples. So when I get paint on it, I just kind of, when I dry brush it off, I'm going to swipe it like this. This is Ferris and Gray, and I'm just going to lightly dry brush some areas as far as trying to bring them up a little bit more, just a smidge more, a smidge. Now what I'm doing is just going to highlight some areas just to make them stand out just a little bit more. The tops of some of these hinges. I don't necessarily have the setup to show all this, so I'm going to try and do my best. But I freehanded so far the platypus, or the platyp. And now I'm just going to try to do the U and the S and show you. This is a Winsor Newton 0. All right, I blocked in most of it already, and now I'm just blocking in the P and just using corn red. I actually had a brain fart and spelled platypus wrong. You think I'd know how to spell platypus by now, but I spelled it with an I instead of a Y. So I had to fix it, and I was the whole time I'm going, don't spell it wrong, don't spell it wrong. Yeah, I spelled it wrong. So on the platypus, I just went up lighter reds and then a yellow. And the shading part right down here is the known oil. I just painted the known oil until I got the color I wanted. And now what I'm doing is these spots that I made with the plastic, kind of with the Weld-On, I'm just going through and painting iron oxide. And right now, because iron oxide is a flat out cover all, I'm just going through and just making sure I just paint inside the areas where I've had the rust or that plastic residue or whatever you want to call it. So I've gone around with the terracotta and just kind of dabbled here and there with them. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put some known oil in them. In the rusted areas, just kind of change up the texture, well not texture, but just the, I totally lost my train of thought. Just to change it up so there's shadows and depth and different things like that in it, so it's just not all one color. Kind of give it some grime to it. I don't want to have it on an angle because I really don't want it to run. I want it to be able to settle in, so I'm going to do a flat side at a time. And then I'll do streaks and things like that with the known oil. And I'm also going to use Agrax Earthshade and do the same thing. And then I'll just streak them down like this. I have various Sharpies, from regular Sharpies, you know, fat, skinny. I have oil-based Sharpies. I have these micron really fine. A lot of this type of stuff I used to get from my mom when she was an art teacher. Somehow they'd magically end up in my possession at the end of the school year, but now I have to buy my own. Some of these didn't exist back then, but some of them are cool. So what I'm going to do is I've kind of already start playing around, but I'm just going to use an oil-based Sharpie and just start doing some graffiti on the containers. I didn't want to really do it prior to. Because it's a really dark background, I might actually go back and paint a little bit of that white in just with freehand once that's all dried. I like the black, this one, but I'm not sure about the white one. Anyway, then when it's all done, let's go, and when it's all dry, I'll go and outline of some of these. And then I'll weather it once it's all dry so it doesn't really stand out. So I did this container right before I made the move up here. It's just between getting everything situated here and other things that have occurred, I haven't been able to find time or to be able to edit this. As I mentioned before, I did spell platypus wrong. And the whole time I was doing it, I was like, oh, don't spell this wrong. And I don't know why I stuck an I in there, but I put the Y in there and recovered it. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. I'll be more than happy to help you out and answer those questions. And I do like plastic when it comes to stuff like this because it's a little bit more durable and the dents on it maintain or don't go away. Trying to think if there's anything I would do differently, and yeah, I wouldn't handwrite things because my handwriting sucks. But anyway, if you want to see more of this piece and other things like it, you can go over to our Instagram account. It's Platypus Scotsman, and check us out there. Man, it's been a while since I've done a closing, and it's interesting that you kind of lose rhythm if you don't do it all the time. And for those who are new to the channel, my mother used to be an art teacher, and she always believed that any student that came into our art class could do art. It may not have been the art that they wanted or the art that they were after, but she believed with patience and perseverance that anybody could do art. And I also believe that as well. And that's why my outro is what it is because my mother used to always believe that anyone can do art. Because I've had people that want to learn how to paint miniatures and do different things like that they don't think they have the skill to do it. And I would disagree. I'm more than happy to help you out where I can as far as things like this are concerned, and if you have any questions, feel free. I'd be more than happy to try to help out and do what I can. But you have a wonderful night, and hope your hobby treats you well, and hope everything's good, and hope you're not going to stir crazy with everything that's going on right now, and that I don't know where I was going with that. Anyway, you have a good one. Take it easy, man. Cheers. Ciao. Cheers, ciao. Later.